Shing shing. Kekfila TCG. April, Texas Regional. Reiju. It's a great day here at Kekfila's YouTube channel, and I am your host, the Kekfila, and today I have a video about my Texas Regional experience where I played Reiju. But first, a channel update. I'm going to have this channel a lot more about hot topics and even some drama, where I can really give some of my thoughts in full detail. And I want to be open with you guys. I would love to get some participation, if you could, in the YouTube comments and on Twitter, because I just think that's something that I consistently can do good at. More on that specific thing later, but without further ado, let's get into the goo. April 13th, I'm leading up to this Texas Regional off of some pretty bad losses online. And I'm still playing Reiju, and I've been doing good at locals, and I'm really just trying to focus on what's good for me at the moment and trying to be focused. Leading up to Texas, however, was a lot of anticipation because it was a big traveling thing for me this time. I brought my girlfriend along, and she was able to come and play, and it made me really happy that she was having a good time, and I had that extra support with me in Texas. And my experience in Texas was really good, especially compared to last time. I do want to say a few things before I get actually into the games. The event was ran okay. It did start pretty late, about an hour and a half later than it should have. And then on top of that, we ended like at 10 p.m. And that adds a lot of frustration to players. There was a lunch break that was had that was given good warning for. And although the concessions were pretty much packed, I was lucky to have something door dashed with my girlfriend. So, new pro tip: get someone to get you food before the break. Here's the Reiju build I decided to do, and it's pretty standard. All Reiju builds maybe have about 5 or so cards difference, but I think the main thing people look at is how many puddings and how many queens you have. I think right now Sakazuki's on a downtrend. So with Katakuri being so high up and other decks, essentially playing queens are just going to be better. They're going to help you out in the mirror a lot more. They're going to help you out against red purple law if you ever have a chance. And puddings really just help against Sakazuki. You still want to be able to threaten them with a pudding, but if there was a lot more Sakazukis, I definitely would play more puddings rather than queens. But I don't regret running this many queens because it did help me out a lot in the Swiss rounds, and that's kind of what's important. You have to get top cut in order to actually do top cut, right? I do have a guide over on the Will to Win Patreon as well. That's where I do most of my educational content with Will and Eric and Josh Graham. And essentially, we just have a lot of good insight with that. And then I've been doing a lot with Reiju there. So if you're looking to actually learn how to play Reiju pretty efficiently, go check that out over there and become a patron and ask any question you need. To go into the games, we have 10 full rounds and a top 32 top cut. And I'll just jump into round one. Round one, I was faced against a Sakazuki. His name was Omar. He did actually decline a selfie. He seemed pretty closed off. The opponents you have when they're just playing their own game, like they don't even say they're using Sakazuki skill, and they just discard, knowing that and I just say everything out loud. Okay, you're doing this, you're doing that. The game kind of goes normally. I believe I just had a good curve into a judge, and the judge ended up being just too much for him to handle. And I was able to close this one out in a pretty good fashion. A little funny side story: the table right behind me, it was like falling apart, and the matches haven't started yet, but they're all like holding it up with their legs. I just can imagine they're all like trying to play, holding it up with their legs the whole like 35 minutes. But it was definitely something pretty funny. They replaced the table. Round two, Gecko Moria. I end up beating John here. And against John, I believe I won the dice roll. And I think it's always a good idea to go first against Gecko Moria because it just throws them off their 9 Dawn curve and their 3 Dawn curve, which is just pretty big for you. So I was able to just keep the momentum. I believe I bounced a Kuzan. He didn't really have a lot he could do this game. It was kind of mediocre. And then I started bouncing his cards that were pretty annoying. He didn't have an 8-cost Moria when he needed it. And I was able just to use Judge and just become overwhelming. It wasn't crazy. I think it was a little close, but it wasn't too close. I think I won in a good fashion just because the way my curve went. Round 3, I ended up facing Tyler, Infernity B in a Reiju mirror. And I want to do a little bit of insight into the Reiju mirror right now. So the main thing is do you go first or second? And then what do you do after that point? And this mirror is the absolute worst matchup you can get outside of red purple law. So on this mirror, I win the die roll. I choose to go first. Hee hee ha ha. But he snap keeps his hand going second, and I just know what that means. He has little Reiju into big Reiju. That means he can Dawn minus before me, and I couldn't do anything this game. My deck actually even bricked on top of that, and it was just really, really bad. Even when I got a Judge down, I wasn't able to get Dawn minus enough in order to even catch up and take over the game. But good for Tyler. Tyler did also make top cut and made top 16, actually. So I ended up facing, a pretty good opponent to lose to. Round 4, another Gecko Moria. This is the round before lunch, and I meet my good friend here in this hat. He's just very kind. I'm kind of memeing with him half the time about like, hey, your life shouldn't be in front of your deck. Well, actually, but I was just messing around with him the whole time. But basically, the game came down to 1K counter. He had to go for lethal at some point, and when he attacked me, I had to look at my life and everything. I think they thought the last turn out for at least 5+ minutes, and I essentially needed X amount of counter to counter out of all of his attacks. And I had enough counter. Whatever way I was going to counter it, I had enough counter to get there, but I needed the last one to be a 2K counter, and that's just what got me there. Lunchtime, got some Chick-fil-A and had a pretty good time. I do want to do a little side note. A lot of the food I had in Texas tasted really bleh until like after the tournament for some reason. Maybe just where I was going, but even the Chick-fil-A sandwich didn't taste the same. Maybe it was allergies, but yeah, something, just a side note. Round 5, I ended up facing Clifford. I've faced Clifford before at another regional, if you look back at my last Texas regional. And essentially in this game, he's playing Sakazuki, I'm playing Reiju, and I was able just to go off, and Clifford kind of admitted he's never really played against a strong Reiju who is rushing for Judge, and he did brick quite a bit. I don't remember exactly what the cards were, but I feel like he had a lot of cards in hand. I sensed a lot of frustration from him and his deck, but I was able to clutch it out this time and gave him another loser Dawn. But I appreciate you, Clifford, for the awesome game, and I'll probably see you again next Texas. Round 6, I end up facing a aggro Yamato. It's kind of scary not knowing if it's aggro or fortress, but you just kind of plan to do the same thing anyway. And you realize it's aggro right away. This game ended up being very close, I think at least by 2 or 3K counter. And essentially what was happening here was a lot of back and forth. He was able to get his searches off, get his life back up, and he did not get a Mihawk Ohm Holy. He just got a Mihawk Ohm off. Didn't get the Holy, and I think that was essentially what I needed to have happen for me to survive the early game in order to shut him down later. My opinion, Reiju is a better Yamato, but it is extremely scary facing a Yamato, especially if they are able to play down cards when you don't have enough counter in hand and you can't deal with their banish attacks. It's very tough. Also, I realized I lost my sleeves that I had. I was actually selling these sleeves like $10 for 10 sleeves, and I left them in some plastic bag. And they asked the lost and found, and they said they haven't found them, and they'll keep an eye out. And more on that later. Round 7, I faced Katakuri. I'm at the top tables now. One comment is that where the top tables were, it wasn't very convenient for onlookers to look at. It's a big thing. It was just kind of in a corner there, and it was kind of dark if you were a top table player. It's not really where you're used to being. But I ended up facing somebody, I think it was Holden Friend's teammates, and he knew Will and everything like that. With that, I faced a Katakuri, the only Katakuri I faced the whole tournament. And I was able to really spam out queens here. Queens were very, very strong. I was able to use Nijis to remove things on their board. Basically, everything that I needed to go right went right, and I had control over the whole game. And it can be really tough against Katakuri. I do want to think that he was pretty unlucky when it came to triggers, because generally they aim to get 2 or 3 triggers in a game, but essentially, that's just kind of how that game goes. They understand those pluses and minuses, but from there we are now 6 wins, 1 loss. Round 8, I end up facing a Gecko Moria. His name is Dai, and I feel like I kind of recognized him a little bit, but the thing was, he's very serious, very stern. And I asked him where he's from, and he said California. And right away I asked him, do you know Nikki Goldman? And he's like, yeah, I actually am his sponsor. I'm like, oh yeah, well, you remind me a lot of Nikki, because Nikki is just complete serious. Always serious the whole time during a game. You can't give away any tells, but it doesn't work on me, It's you can be as serious as you want, but I'm here to have fun with the game. He ended up winning a die roll and going second, which I disagree with. And what ended up happening in this game is I was able just to kind of go off. I don't think he saw too many pressure points early he could abuse on me. He was removing my board, but the judge turn ended up being pretty strong. It was a pretty solid win, and I want to give a lot of advice to those Gecko Moria players that are trying to face Reiju right now, or even vice versa. I find that Rebecca is a very big key card, because there's no real way for me to deal with Rebecca, and it ends up being just too much advantage. It's why it's just kind of a broken card. So if you're playing with a non-Rebecca build, just kind of reconsider if that's what you really want, because this Rebecca makes this Reiju matchup a lot easier for you. And I found I've have a hard time dealing with Rebecca in general. Round 9, a mirror Reiju. Eric, I want to say this was the most unprofessional game I have ever had in my career. There's many points to this. It's a Reiju mirror, which we both know is degenerate, non-fun bullshit. And I won the die roll. Good for me, right? E-Snap keeps going second. I only know what that means. He's going to do the exact same thing. And, I actually thought about for a long time if I was going to choose to go second, do the same thing to him. But I didn't, because it's just kind of trolling. I'm putting them on that. I need to be able to put him on having the exact cards, and that's kind of the in-depth thing here. I play this game out the best I can, and with this game, I'm complaining the whole time. I'm saying this is bullshit. I was able to get my stage early going. He never was able to get a stage, and at one point, I think I got off a queen, and it was really funny. At some point, I just kind of forgot how my skills worked again, and I called out a Reiju with skill. And I wasn't able, I called it a Reiju with skill, and I started drawing 3 cards, but he stopped me. He's like, stop it. You're trying to draw too many cards. I just forgot. The cards didn't hit my hand yet, so we just put them back in the same order, but I was able to get Dawn -2'd, so I can get at least an Ichiji off. And then he goes to his turn and does the exact same thing. And then I was able to pull up a, well, actually, you can't do that Reiju ability because you're a 1 Dawn above me. And he apologized. He forgot about that as well right after I did it. And at some point in this game, I literally just said, fuck this game. I gave up mentally on this game knowing I was losing. There was no way for me to win, and I should just forfeit, but I'll play it out just for fun. What ended up happening is he has 5 cards in hand, 3 life. I have 5 attackers only. I can't Dawn minus enough in order to get an ETG off. So I swing all 5 characters, 7k. And between those 8 cards, he only had 4k counter. He was not able to counter out of 2 of my attacks. And it was just glorious. I couldn't believe it. I was in shock when he told me that I won. And I'm sure you guys have seen games where someone bricks with like 9 cards in hand. And that's the same feeling, but Reiju doesn't have many of those games because they don't run a whole lot of non-counter cards. So off of that, Reiju hilarious high, kind of knowing that I'm most likely in top cut now, that I'm 8 wins, 1 loss. I then go to my final round. In my final round, I face Yamato, and facing Will. I think he also goes by Beaver2 in the cross Discord. And essentially, we kind of know how this game is a little Reiju favored. But essentially, I was able to win the die roll, go second. And I had 2k counters for his first attack. And then he threw down a Nami and did it again. And I had 2 more 2k counters because I was able to replenish my hand with Reiju. And that kind of left him in the dirt. He wasn't able to actually use his leader skill to get 2 Dawn on a character the whole game. I stayed at 4 life because I had such great card advantage and I was able to get queens out very quickly. Queens are very good here. He's able to get Nekomamushi to attack my queens, but I have so much counter in my hand, it's not really a big deal. And I want to say I just kind of won the game off those first few turns, but he does play it out as much best as he can. But the fact that I'm at 4 life the entire game makes so his leader skill is kind of moot. But he did make it in a top 14 and was able to secure that top 32 spot along with me. So there I was. I got 3rd place in Swiss. So glorious. I did come back for my first top cut of One Piece TCG. I get out, I get some quick food from some burger place, and we're off. And I'm off to bed. I got to be back there really early in the morning. But my hotel bed's like really uncomfortable. And I end up getting this email in the middle of the night giving us all the deck lists. So it's an open deck list format. So I can see who I'm facing. I'm facing a Sakazuki, Billy McManus, and I end up going the next morning. We do our deck check. I end up changing my sleeves because I was, maybe afraid they wouldn't like my sleeves. And against this, my top 32 game against Billy went something like this. I choose to go second, and I think I made a crucial mistake in the early game where on my first turn, I used the top search and grabbed my stage card. I needed to grab something, but I had a lot of those cards there. I was able to do things like Reiju or Ichiji, and I had that combo. And hindsight's 50-50, but I should have grabbed one of those other cards and hoped to draw into another stage because I did draw into a few other stages. And I wasn't able to put any pressure on that first 4 Dawn turn, where I wasn't able to put enough pressure, and eventually I lost by 1k counter. It was very, very close that first game. And it kind of brings up another point, which is that top cut 1 hour is just not enough time. We have to play super fast, and usually there are decks like Sakazuki, which usually need a little bit more time because that's just how things go, especially in the upcoming formats like OPO7, where there's a lot of boss monsters. A lot of these decks are going to go on a little bit longer. I end up going to game 2. I choose to go second again, and I actually don't see much at all. He sees everything again, but I don't see much at all. But I end up losing this one in a normal fashion where I try to swing out for game, and he has, maybe 2k more counter than I can deal with. But with that, essentially he goes on to top 8, and that's great for him. He did play well and draw well in our games. I didn't high roll him exactly, but I'm happy with the way I played. And I wish I only wish I can change out those queens to puddings for our game so I can pudding him, but I have to win Swiss, and those queens helped me a lot more in Swiss than a pudding would. I give my top cut pricing, and I'm still trying to sell that top cut pricing for a nice price. If any of you want to be any awesome donators, but you get a awesome prize of a prize card, let me know. Now, on to my favorite part of all these is the consensus. What did I think? Texas was great. I met a lot of great people again. I'm so glad my girlfriend came so she can come and meet these awesome people. A lot of people came up to me. And I feel like I have a problem with everything. I literally try to be almost everybody's friend. Regardless of whatever beef's going on with anybody, I try to be everyone's friend. I try to have a good time. I am a shit stirrer where I like to make memes and make fun of things and just kind of show you the realistic problems that are happening. So I scroll through Twitter a little bit. I want to end up doing another video on this specifically, but on Twitter, there's a lot of complaining about webcam events because there's, again, another cheater. Every time there's a cheater on webcam events, there's this big picket writing for improving webcam events, and it's kind of forgotten a few days later. Right, and this is like the 4th or 5th time it's really happened since the game has started. So there were a lot of mixed opinions. A lot of people had positive opinions. I just saw a lot of, I don't like webcams. They should be abolished. We need to have the online client made. And I am very pro webcam, and I do play devil's advocate on some of these topics and just kind of give people a thought. And, you know, on Twitter, you can only put 140 characters. Sometimes I don't put things correctly in the right sentences the way they should be said. Most of the time, I am just in the minority opinion anyway. But you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with you guys calling me stupid, L takes, telling everyone to downvote me, and just trying to hard disagree with my opinion. But, maybe do it in a fun way rather than just, you know, being a dickhead. But hey, I'm happy of having any open discussion with anybody, and I do actually want to open that up to you guys in the comments down below and on Twitter. Let me know what you guys think about the current webcam situation, and maybe I'd like to have a call with you guys and understand what's going on. Now, as you guys saw at the beginning of the video, I have actually my own Patreon. I am still working with Will at Will to Win Gaming on their Patreon, but I have my own little Patreon. I just put pictures of chicken sandwiches there, and I have some other things totally. It's completely just for my YouTube. Maybe you can make it to this notebook very soon. Check out the description down below for that. And if you want to talk to me about any topics, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or in the YouTube comments.
Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and we'll see you all in the next video. Ciao.